What is up? And welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I am interviewing Anthony Gore. Anthony is that guy that actually did a Vue.js newsletter for the last couple of years, and for me, he has been the source of truth on Vue.js stuff. I have always read his newsletter, and when I got to interview him, I was like really giddy and like, oh, this dude is awesome. I actually get to talk to him. And I'm doing this interview in a collaboration with the Vue.js Global Conference. This is from the same people that organized the excellent Vue.js Amsterdam conference. So in this collaboration, I get to interview the speakers and talk to them about their talk, also a bit technically. And then the conference organizers can cut out a little bit of that and use that as a promotion. So kind of a win-win for everybody. So with Anthony, we talk about his talk about Vue 3 for Vue 2 developers. So we go into the differences, and of course in his talk he will elaborate a lot more, but it was really cool to talk to him. We became fast friends, and I'm really keen to work with him more. But without further ado, this is the interview with Anthony Gore for the Vue.js Global Conference. Hello, Anthony. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Tim.
I am so happy to have someone who is not European or American, just like diversity. I'm so happy with this. That's not a question, but it's just my statement. Super cool to have you on. So we're talking today in context of the Vue.js Global Conference. Would you mind talking about what your talk is about? And then maybe after that, like what people would learn.
Sure. So it may surprise you, but I'm actually going to be talking about Vue 3.
Oh boy.
And yeah, there was plenty of other topics I could have talked about, but I thought this is going to be the hot one this
yeah, it
time
is.
around,
It really is. Yeah.
So my talk, what I want to do is give audience an almost hands-on experience using Vue 3. So obviously I'm going to be the one doing the coding, but I'm just going to take them through the process of building a small app with Vue 3 so that they kind of get a feel for what it's like to work with Vue 3 rather than just sort of focusing on features.
Okay. So you'll be actually live coding on stage, trying to do something.
So I'm not going to be live coding. As fun as that would be, it's I think there's probably too many sort of mundane parts, but I'm just going to be showing sort of snapshots of code as we go.
Okay.
So
sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say, in terms of what I think people would learn from it, I think if you just focus sort of on the features of Vue 3, obviously you'll learn a lot that way. But I thought it would be interesting to do it from another angle and give people a sense of what app development is like with Vue 3. So like where it's the same as Vue 2, where it's different and why. And also probably a lot of the little changes that you'll come across day to day are things that are, just seemingly small things like, different syntax for things. And I just thought it'd be interesting to explore Vue 3 in this kind of more organic way.
Okay. So the other day, well, maybe like 2 weeks ago, I made a video about Feet, the new module bundler. But of course, that comes with Vue 3, right? So I thought, why not just build something with Vue 3 so I can get a feeling of that and then make a video about Feet. But what I noticed is I kind of made a hybrid thing between like a real app, but also more like just web stuff. Because what I wanted to do is when I swipe on my phone, it kind of goes to the next page. It's kind of like TikTok, right? So what I had to do is bind to the window and then swipe down some like a div to go back and forth. The thing is, I had to use refs to touch the DOM itself. I was so challenged by that, and I still to this day don't really understand how the references to DOM nodes, how they kind of work. And did you notice these kind of quirks? Or is this maybe something that people that do Vue 3 don't actually use anymore?
Okay, so I'm going to start by saying I don't necessarily know because I haven't tried exactly what you're trying to do here. So
I think that's what most people told me, actually.
Yeah,
it's kind of the weird thing, right?
is what I understand that you're trying to do like a low level kind of DOM manipulation. Like you want to actually
Exactly.
access a node in the DOM. So,
Yeah,
I mean, how you did that in Vue 2 was with, like, I would mostly use like custom directives because those
exactly.
give you ways to access that. And as far as I know, in Vue 3, custom directives are pretty much the same. I think there's some
Hmm.
change in the syntax, but
I
yeah, I
noticed.
mean, you've thrown a tough one at me, and I'd have to kind of see your code to really be able to explore that.
No, but that's kind of fine because you know what? When I actually read the docs, I was fine. So as many
Mm,
developers, you just want to have a look. And what I learned by doing a directive, because that's where I went, is that the naming of the directive, like you used to have like the binding and stuff like that in a directive, that's now
mm,
changed to different names. And
it has,
once you get
yes.
that, you're actually fine. And I
Yeah,
really enjoyed using Vue 3. And what it also reminded me of more is like it's more, how do you say? I don't want to sound React like, but it's kind of like you can compose very nicely, right?
yeah,
And you can
yeah,
abstract things and you don't need the mixins anymore. But however,
yes.
I have all these because I work on enterprise level and I do like so many projects that are not a full Vue app, but they're also mixed with like these huge CMSs, and we cannot just get rid of them sometimes. So we have like these
Gotcha.
weird use cases, right? But without going into one of those, like also because I work in enterprise, I have teams from India to New York to France, like from all over the place with different skill levels. What would be easier to teach coming from a more old school background, Vue 2 or Vue 3?
Okay, so Vue 2 and Vue 3, I don't think either is easier or harder.
Okay.
The composition API is definitely a more advanced API, but you wouldn't
Mm,
start with that anyway. So
exactly.
you would start with just the basics. And now that I'm saying that, I actually think Vue 3 would be easier because some of the changes in Vue 3 were specifically to remove some of the uh, confusion around certain things. Like one example would
Mm,
be when you create a component's data, you can use either an object or you can use a factory function that returns an object.
yeah.
That's how you can do it in Vue 2. In Vue 3, you're now forced to use the factory function and return an object. And my understanding is that change has been made because it's a little bit confusing saying, oh, here's how you do it in a Vue instance. But when you get to a component, oh, you can't do it that way anymore. Now you have to do it like this. So there's been a few
Actually,
small
that's true.
changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's been a few small changes like that in Vue 3, which I think just remove that ambiguity, that remove that kind of um, difficulty in learning. Not that there was ever that much difficulty in learning Vue compared to a lot of other frameworks, but
Oh, totally
now I
true.
think it's
Yeah.
just so seamless. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. What I really enjoyed, like kind of what you said, you have to choose what becomes reactive. And so it kind of makes you understand more what you are doing, but then you have to understand the concept of reactiveness a little bit more. Because now what I
Mm,
had with Vue 2, when somebody came from a jQuery background, this still exists in the corporate world, right? Where people up until now have just done DOM manipulation, stuff like that. Even
yeah.
if they didn't really understand the reactivity, it kind of worked because it kind of was black magic. Because everything in
Mm,
in that data property, it just worked. And
yeah.
of course, you have a lot of other big problems with people who are on that skill level. But for me, at least, you had the view file and you can just give them 5 things to do, and it always kind of worked. But you
Mm,
know what? People have to learn, and Vue 3 is so much in that sense. You can do more with it. It's more scalable, I guess. So
yeah.
it's really interesting that you talk about all this stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah. 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 And I think um, I know for myself, I've learned a lot more about how Vue internals work
Mm,
just from learning some of the new features of Vue 3. So, in exploring the composition API in more depth, there was definitely for me a few sort of aha moments where I'm just like,
okay.
oh, that's why that's like that, or that's like that. And but of course, you don't have to start with that sort of stuff on day one. That's there for you when you're ready for it.
Exactly. Yeah, and
Mm.
same for me, but I haven't gone as deep as I think I should have. So I'm ready to look at your talk, actually, to watch your talk, because that's going to be cool. Even though I've seen a
Excellent.
couple of them yet, but then Vue 3 wasn't out, right? And now it's at least in beta, so now it's kind of stable. So it's going to be
Yeah,
like this for a
yeah.
while, I'm assuming.
I probably won't record my talk until maybe a week before because I
Yeah.
just have this fear that it's like I'm going to be like, oh, here's how you do this, and it's like, no, that's changed. But
Yeah.
no, I think you're right. I think most of the features are stable now, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm actually in the same boat. I've been asked to do a talk about feed and feed press just to give like an
right.
introduction. But I feel like everything I say, Evan is like, no, I just changed that like 2 days ago. Right? We'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, about your talk and also your work in the community, how does that fit in? Because I'm just quickly looking at my question because what I wrote down is like, what you say you are a Vue community member, right? To me,
Mm.
you're very close to that Vue team and how everything works. But how is that different from, let's say, a core team member?
Well, I mean, I didn't come up with the concept of Vue community
Mm,
members, so I mean, I can only really guess. But my understanding is that um, Vue community partners are people who are kind of yeah, partnered with the Vue core team, but we're not actually working on code or doing any sort of pull requests or
okay.
anything directly. We're kind of, I guess, in a sort of outer circle a bit, but what we're doing is still assisting the Vue project. Of course, there's
Okay.
many, probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are assisting the Vue project in their own way.
I'd say I
Um,
am too, but I don't have a title
of
like that.
course,
So what's the difference?
right?
Maybe because I just didn't go there. I don't know. I might be one.
Maybe. Again, it's hard to say. I don't make any decisions about that, but
Exactly. Yeah.
I guess probably one thing for me is that I've been doing it for quite a while,
Mm,
since maybe 2016. So yeah, look, I don't exactly know, but all I can say is yeah, it's something that I like to and happy to be part of it. And
yeah.
I love the Vue project, so love to keep contributing to it in any way I can.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Mm.
honestly my first kind of community driven kind of thing that I jumped into. And you know what? You just mentioned 2016. And I think your newsletter also started around that or maybe a bit later, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think February 2017. So I'm
Ah, okay.
into issue 183 now. So
Whoa.
yeah, it's been going for a
It's
while.
amazing.
Yeah.
Man,
Uh,
I remember like I switched jobs to work for L'Oreal. And L'Oreal is this huge company, right? It's not one company. They're like 25 companies. And we had to use Vue.js to build all those company websites. And when they told
right.
me like we want the lead for this and we're gonna use Vue, I'm like, huh? Okay, let me think. What's Vue again? Really? What's that? And that was beginning 2017, I think. And then I found your
Yeah.
newsletter and I have been actually just reading all of them. And so
Wow.
I really enjoy it. And well, I don't always like when it comes in, I'm busy, I don't always see it, but then I always come back to it because I never mark it as read, right? It's one of those. So
That's good
congrats
to
on
know.
that because
Good to know
it
somebody's reading it.
oh, I think a lot of people are reading it to be honest. But so
Yeah, of
talking
course.
about a newsletter. So
Mm.
how did you come up with starting it? But then once you start, how do you curate it and actually maintain this momentum that you have?
Yeah, so I started it because I think probably one of the main reasons is that I was blogging a fair bit and I wanted
Okay.
to send my blogs out to people. And then I thought, well, why not just put a few other interesting links in there at the same time? And that's just kind of how it was born. And so now I've got to the point where I don't necessarily blog every week anymore, but
Mm,
I'll still just put in those 7 links. So that's the feature of my newsletter is that it's always 7 links, no more, no less, and one for each day of the week.
yeah,
And
exactly.
the way I choose those is I really just look through. I spend about an hour each week looking through interesting articles that have come out that week about Vue or topics that are very closely related to it.
Mm,
And I just think, well, people who are Vue developers, what's going to be of most interest and value to them? and so I'll just choose them based on that. So there's no, it's not a particularly complicated science or anything. It's really simple as that.
Okay, so there's not, well, I'm just thinking, is there some sort of quality level that you need as a minimum, like how it's written, or is it more like you just having a gut feeling of like, okay, this just fits, let's run with it?
Yeah, I guess every sort of article that I'm looking at, I'm thinking, like I said, I'm thinking like if I was a Vue developer receiving this, would I think this was of value? Of course, not everything is going to be of value to everybody,
Mm,
but yeah, I mean, obviously quality will come into play. It's not all just about the the quality of how the article is constructed, but it's also about finding interesting topics.
sure.
And of course, there's many articles come out each week, and I think it's a great thing that people do that. In
Yeah,
some cases, there's articles that will come out where it's like, well, I don't know if that's as much value as another article because maybe that topic's been covered a lot before, or
yeah,
or whatever it is. So I just use my
sure.
sort of gut instinct on that, and ultimately, it's like I think if it interests me, it probably interests some other people, and I've just
Okay.
been running with that, and
Well,
got to where we are. So I
hopefully
guess it's true.
that means I might also be able to do that one day. Just have the experience, have the feeling of what the community needs a little bit, and
Definitely
then just
could.
run with it,
Yeah,
right?
you
I guess.
definitely could. And there's, I mean, obviously there's so many different ways to create content on the internet. So you could,
Sure.
your blog or YouTube. And I know you do a lot of videos. And well,
Yes.
here's one for you actually. I don't include that many videos in my newsletter. And the reason I don't is because I've got the feedback from people that mostly when they're looking at this, maybe they're on a train or something like that.
Mm,
They don't necessarily have their headphones in. People just said they prefer the articles. And there's a lot of great material goes onto YouTube. And sometimes it's just so good, I just have to put it in the newsletter anyway.
sure.
And it's the same with podcasts. I don't really link to podcasts so often in my newsletter. So there's a great thing that somebody could do is put together maybe a YouTube video newsletter for Vue
Actually, that
because
might be the right niche. Exactly. Because I can imagine though,
because you're into
like,
video.
yeah,
Mm.
exactly. And I also write and I do other stuff, but this is the one thing I noticed. Like, there's like these golden nuggets in videos, but you don't always
Mm.
find them. It's not really searchable, even though YouTube is like the second biggest search engine out there. If I can scan
Yeah.
a text while I'm on my way to work, it that just works better. You're totally right. So it's interesting feedback.
Yep. All basically there's so many different kinds of content on the internet out there, and I think
Yeah,
they all have their value. If they didn't,
exactly.
we wouldn't see them being prevalent. So I think
Exactly.
there's no question of whether, you know, articles versus videos versus podcasts, they all hold value. I guess it's just in a different way.
Exactly. So if you
Mm.
talk about, or if we talk about your blog, so I'm assuming that
Mm.
came first and then the newsletter just rolled into that because of course you want to share
Yeah.
your work. So that blog, did that also evolve into like that learning thing, like the Vue.js developers account on Twitter? How did that
It
evolve?
definitely did.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So it started, basically I started it, I was sort of working on a startup idea in 2016. And this is where I first experimented with Vue.
Mm,
And um, I wanted to sort of promote the startup thing that I was working on. So I was like, maybe I'll write a couple of articles.
sure.
What can I write about? I wasn't an experienced blogger. And I was like, well, I've just started trying this Vue thing. And it's really cool. Maybe if I write some articles about that,
Mm,
that would be a way that I could share what I'm up to and hopefully get people interested in my startup idea. And people were interested in my articles about Vue, not so much in my startup idea. And
oh
eventually
boy.
I kind of got the message, and I was just kind of
Yeah,
like, seems people like this. Maybe I should just focus on doing that. So yeah, it was really as simple as that. And then so I was like, okay, I'll write another article and another one, and one thing led
sure.
to another, and here I am still doing it. So
Wow. And so how did that transition into doing the coursework and then also people
mm,
paying for that? Because that's actually my main question here. I've been talking to other people in the community
mm,
that would do like yeah, some training websites and you could do like a monthly payment and stuff like that. And
mm.
they've had pretty bad experiences with that. That people just go to YouTube
Yep.
and just not pay. How does that work for you?
Okay, so I think It sort of goes back to what we were saying about content before, which is different people like different things. Everybody
Sure.
has their preference.
Mm,
Certain people really highly value online courses, other people not so much. And so
exactly.
for me, it's really just a simple matter of um, finding those people who are interested in that and trying to create something that they would find valuable enough to want to pay for.
Sure.
And if they don't, they don't, and so I'd move on to the next thing. But I guess my point is this: is that I think it's better to focus on the people who want it rather than the people who don't.
Oh, I totally get it. So
Mm,
it's much better to have like 5 amazing fans than 100,000 that look at their phones if you make music online, right? Something like that. So I can,
100%. Yeah,
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 it's about the quality, and if you can then scale that, like you've clearly done, you're fine. Because this is interesting,
yeah,
right? So, like my wife, for example, she's learning some web stuff, and she just lives by the school approach, like getting like
right.
a course, paying for it, getting the books, reading everything. I'm like the opposite person. I'm a musician, I'm a guitarist, and I just play by ear anything. So the same as I don't really read the docs, I just use my experience to run with something and then check out
Yeah,
something or ask my friends. So for me, well, I would probably for one of your courses, if I really needed to dive in, I would probably pay for it because it has a
mm,
certain quality level. But any other thing, I would just find out myself. So yeah, there's truly
yeah,
different people here. But as long as you know that yourself, you're
absolutely.
not upset about it, I can imagine. It's fine.
Yeah, of course. Not everything is for everyone, you know.
Exactly.
But yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I've experimented with lots of different things in
Mm,
myself, like there's certain topics where I have purchased courses for, and there's certain topics where I've just been like, you know what, I'm just going to dive in and experiment and see what
sure.
happens. Um, and of course, there's lots of different ways to do courses as well. So
Yeah.
there's a whole discussion about that, I guess. But like I said, my focus has always been on just trying to look at like where can I provide some value to some people.
Yeah, exactly. And when you think about like you do so much for our community, right? You're like an official community partner even. Um, how do you kind of monetize that? Or maybe you don't at all. Like how does that work for you?
Yep. So there's two ways that um, I make money through Vue.js developers. One of them is obviously selling courses, and I also have a
Mm,
book out I did back in 2017 on
okay.
Vue and Laravel, that one.
Yeah.
And um, so I get some, like royalties or whatever from those. And the other way is through sponsorship or advertising. So because I've got, this weekly newsletter coming out and a lot of really smart people are reading that, then
Yeah.
there's companies, particularly companies who have developer tools and they want to, share their latest product or whatever. And so,
Mm,
yeah, I charge them a fee to put their product in there or their ad on the website, and that's like another income stream that I've got
nice.
through this. Yeah.
And do you
So
also look into things like GitHub sponsors or Patreon or something like that?
yeah, so I've got like the Patreon and another one called Coffee,
Ah, yes,
and
sure.
I do use those.
Mm.
The Patreon one, it's basically just a sort of almost a sophisticated way for people to get advertising. And I mean, that's probably
Okay.
true of a
Okay.
lot of Patreons. I think even the Vue.js one, a lot of the people who are paying, a significant amount of money,
Mm.
obviously part of that transaction is they're like, hey, can you put our logo on your website? Because,
Sure. That's how those sponsorships
and
work normally, right?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really what my Patreon is about. The coffee one, I guess there's some people who read my newsletter who are like, hey, people like you, whoever, who like, I may not do one of your courses, but I appreciate what you do, and they'll chuck me $5 here and there, and yeah,
Exactly.
that's
That's not a
super
bad thing.
appreciated.
Exactly, because we have scale. That's not bad. Because
Yeah, it's
I'm
not
actually
bad.
currently thinking about all of those things, right? Because I love doing all the community work. The thing is, I have a
Mm,
great job. I have a good salary. It's all good. I work a lot.
mm,
But on top of that, I do all this. So I'm thinking, am I just a privileged asshole to ask for money based on the fact that I already have a great job. Then again, I spent so much time, like an interview like this, it's gonna take me
Mm,
6 hours, maybe 8 hours to put everything together. That's not a small amount of time on top of a normal job. So I'm in that mindset like, okay, I did 40 videos now. I don't have a
yeah.
huge crowd, but I have a great community and a great crowd that watches. Am I going to ask for money now? How does that work? Did you struggle with any of this, or have you done it so long that it just organically grew into it?
Yeah, so I guess like if you're spending all your time on stuff like this, which I am
Hmm.
now, then it's
Yeah,
like if I didn't ask for money, I just literally couldn't keep doing it.
sure. Okay.
But I suppose in your position where you're like, hey, I got a job, but I'm also doing this.
Yeah,
I don't think I mean, I understand the dilemma.
yeah.
And I guess if you, um, I don't see any harm in asking. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask.
No, okay.
Um,
Well,
and
I would also say
if people
whatever. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think it's unreasonable at all
Mm,
to ask. And if people feel like they want to do that, then that's great. And if they don't, well, so be it. And I guess then you'll have to decide whether you want to keep doing it or not.
exactly. No, but like
Yeah.
also, if I did find some way to monetize it, everything would go back into the content creation. It's not like I'm going to go to
Yeah.
fancy dinners. I just like right now, my camera is fine. It's not great. So I just replace the camera, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what's make it just interests me. But anyways, this is not about me.
Yeah.
But it's still an interesting
Well,
concept, right, to discuss how that works.
I think it is too. And it's forever evolving. But it's
Exactly.
very similar to the people who are doing open source work.
Yeah, sure.
Same as the Vue.js people. It's like, they put a lot of time into it, and
Yeah,
obviously it just wouldn't be sustainable if they all had to work for free all the time.
exactly.
So it's like
Exactly.
at some point, that's just that's capitalism. At some point, a
There we
transaction
go.
has to take place. Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, and yeah, I don't see any harm with that. And I guess we're all still figuring out how to do that effectively.
Yes.
Um, mm,
Anyway, so something completely different. I always
yeah.
ask everybody this. Is there something that you are really good at, but that actually nobody in our community knows anything about?
Well, much
Here we
like you,
go.
I'm a musician.
There we go.
Um,
Cool.
yeah. And so I don't, I have never tried to kind of cross-pollinate
Mm,
my musical output with my Vue.js stuff.
yeah.
But well, to be honest, like over the last few years, because I've been living abroad and spending a lot of time on this, I really haven't been putting anywhere near as much into it. But
Yeah.
I've been thinking lately, actually, I've been like, yeah, I really should, I should get back into that. So who knows? Maybe we should like, start a band with like Vue.js themed
Oh
songs.
boy, that would be so much fun.
Yeah. We have one
But
song
actually,
called like props and another one
oh
called,
no.
directives or something.
Directives, exactly. No, so actually, I'm in a quite similar situation because when I was still living in Amsterdam, I played
Mm,
2, 3 gigs a week in all like
mm,
small pubs to clubs, not really big stuff. When I was in uni, I did touring. Then after I realized,
right.
okay, I that's not really for me. I just lost money, right? And
Yeah.
then I moved to Paris, and then we had the language barrier. There's a new life, even though it's 5 hours away. It's such a different country, and I just really had to
Mm,
adjust. And then you go to like the tiny apartment. It's like if you can imagine living downtown in Sydney, it's a small apartment. It's expensive, right? That's the
mm,
same in Paris. So I didn't bring any guitars, and now I moved a
yeah.
little bit outside of town. And now, actually, you can see behind me, I have a guitar now, and slowly I'm getting
Very
everything
cool.
back. And then the other day, I was doing a webinar, and on the host side, stuff went wrong. So they kept disconnecting, but there was like 100 people in front of us. So I just
Right.
grabbed my acoustic guitar and I was playing some blues for like 10 minutes. And it made me
Awesome.
realize, like, oh man, I just have to get in more because it can. Well, I can imagine you have feel the same. Like to me, the expression of it, the creativity of it. For me, it's well, I used to have that. It's easier than speaking for me, even though I might not always play the best, but it's the
Mm.
feeling, right? So, do you miss it a lot, or are you kind of fine with it?
Yeah. I guess I put a lot of my creative focus and energy into programming and
Mm,
like creating content for well, to be honest, like Vue.js developers and things like that. So
yeah.
um, I guess that has kind of occupied my sort of need for creativity in the last
Sure.
few years. Before I was doing that, I was making a lot more music and playing with that. I think you can have both, but I
Yeah, sure.
guess because I've been trying to do this as a business as well, that always eats up a lot of time. So
Exactly.
and you always feel like, as much as I'd like to think I'll probably be famous once I get back into my music with
There you
that,
go.
but I have to read the numbers, and yeah, you're not likely to
It's
make
hard,
much money
man.
doing that. So yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
for sure. Like even when I was younger, I actually tried, and the more you try, it wasn't working, and you need to have the right connections and the right crowd. And then at one
yeah,
point, I gave that up a bit, and I started doing development and actual like real life work. And then next to that, I was just playing, and we decided to play like old school blues music, just because we loved it. And suddenly success came because you just let go. And the
yeah,
success was
yeah.
small, but having album of the year in your country is kind of fun. It's nothing. You pay for Spotify to play it almost, but still,
Wait, you
it's
had
kind of
album
an
of the year
yeah, but that's
in?
that's a long time ago. So I don't even think you can
Okay,
still find that. But I'll show you. I'll send you some links.
wow.
And this is
Okay,
kind of
wow.
fun when you try something without pushing too hard and to just relax about it. Things
Yeah,
change. As it's an interesting thing for me, and I actually this is kind of a fun cross to. I have a lot of junior developers in my team that just want to go up and up and up and run, but I just tell them just chill, take your time and actually learn something. Take a course, right, or
yeah,
actually fail once in a while. And at one point, when you get promoted, you can actually do that job rather than when you run fast. You get promoted until you fail quite fast, right? So it's an interesting connection there.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff in what you say, but I think I'd agree with you. I think it's as much as we want to get good fast. I know I did, and
Same.
I push hard with that. And I think it's good to have a bit of drive, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I think uh, like this kind of craft, whether it be music or development, it takes time to develop that, and
Yeah.
there's no shortcuts with that. And so
Exactly.
it pays to kind of have a longer view and kind of be thinking, well, it's not just about what I can do today. It's also how am I, you know, mastering this craft over, the next few years or whatever it
Sure.
is.
It's all in the balance, right? So this is another question I ask everybody. So if you had a billboard and you can put that, let's say, on the highway, so like 100,000 people a day drive by it, what would you write on that?
Well, that's easy. I would obviously just advertise my latest course.
There we go. You're honestly the first one in all my interviews to say this. Then again, you're also the only one who has their own company doing it. So that's totally cool. I love it.
I'm not sure trying to sell a Vue course on a sort of national highway would be very effective.
No.
So, the entrepreneur in me says that I'd probably find someone else who had a message and get them to pay me to put that on there. So that's probably a very pragmatic answer, right? You're probably looking for something
It's
philosophical, but that's all I got.
honestly, this is the part of that because sometimes I'm kind of expecting people to be philosophical, but
Right.
I also know there's the other side, and you are now finally the first one who comes to me with the other side. That actually makes me really happy. That's like the perfect answer. Thanks for that.
That's all right.
Hey man, I really want to thank you for your time. I had a great time talking to you, and also to finally meet the face behind the newsletter I've been reading like for years now. It's super nice to see, and
Yeah.
so thanks for taking the time, man. It's awesome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I had a lot of fun talking with you as well. So yeah, let's do
Nice.
it again another time.
All right, man. Thanks. Hopefully see you soon. Cheers. Bye.
Okay. Bye bye.